So welcome everyone. We're going to be talking about nation-state adoption of Bitcoin in the portfolio of nations. Let's start off, we've got some incredible people here, including Abdulla. Now, the UAE right now is the #1 adopter for crypto in the world, and we have Pakistan, which is #3. So we have representatives of 2 of these countries. We're going to start off by just asking each person to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Prince Filip of Serbia and I am CSO of Jan3, a company focused on nation-state adoption and Bitcoin technology. We aim to facilitate acceleration of Bitcoin adoption across the world.
Hello guys, my name is Abdulla Al Dhaheri and I run the blockchain center in Abu Dhabi as an ecosystem builder here.
Hi, my name is Bilal Bin Saqib. I am the chairman of the Pakistan Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority, where we're trying to incubate and regulate crypto in Pakistan. We have over 40 million crypto wallets in the country.
Great.
Why don't you introduce yourself, Daniel, as well?
My name is Daniel Batten. I'm the managing partner of CH4 Capital. We mainly focus on Bitcoin mining, which is one way that you can get a national strategic reserve from Bitcoin. I'm going to start off by asking Bilal. Now, for those of you who don't know, he was there to make an announcement at Bitcoin Las Vegas that Pakistan was forming a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and they were also going to use 2,000 megawatts of surplus energy for Bitcoin mining. Now, if you don't know, that's the equivalent of being able to power 2 million residents. Could you just give us a quick update on what's happening in Pakistan? Because that was an extraordinary and unexpected announcement. How's that going?
Yeah, so we are kicking off with the first phase of that announcement, which will be happening very soon. And secondly, on our wallet as well. So we've, it's not easy trying to get the status quo to work on these new ideas, but we are there. So we've also set up our wallet, and the announcement will again be coming very soon.
Right. And Abdulla, who's running the blockchain center, you're currently also running a $50 million investment fund. Can you talk us a little bit through how that's facilitating crypto and Bitcoin adoption in the United Arab Emirates?
Look, for our investments are things that we are interested in the future. I remember yesterday in one of the talks I gave at a BNB hackathon was, for us when we do our investments or look into projects, we don't look for the next 2 years. We look at projects that are stable and actually can achieve something for the next 10, 20 years. Basically, we believe in the future, whether it's remittances, tokenized digital assets, Bitcoin on the balance sheet or as a treasury, etc. And I would say everything has to have value, basically. And when it comes to adoption, nation states are going to enter into an era right now. Everybody's saying it this year, for example, like everything is becoming more institutionalized and all of these aspects. But things when it becomes at a nation state level, for example, like Bilal and what they're building in Pakistan, etc. It's a different game there. It's not about mass adoption anymore. It's about what could we achieve bigger than this.
Yeah. Well, you already have 30% of the population who's using crypto, which is extraordinary to get to that point. So now it becomes about what else can you do?
I would say in terms of what else we could do, I think the next thing that would be interesting is the digital asset remittance market. We personally right now believe FX is going to be the next game. That's outside of Bitcoin, I would say. And I'm interested to see when the actual fiat currency in all countries start to vanish a bit and everybody starts looking into stablecoins. And this is an important thing, by the way, because today you have central banks, treasuries backed by gold. So my question would be do we see a time where Bitcoin becomes a reserve currency for these central banks? Knowing about the volatility that we have, knowing about the ecosystem around the Bitcoin space and all of these things.
We just had an announcement recently in the Czech Republic, I believe, that they had the Central Bank of the Czech Republic had decided to allocate a small amount as a test for Bitcoin. So very interesting to hear that this is a possibility for central bankers in the UAE as well. Prince Philip, you have been traveling the world talking to nation-state level about Bitcoin adoption. How is that going at the moment?
It's interesting. It's fulfilling work, but it's tough.
You're allowed to tell us about the challenges. I said to everyone, let's be honest, let's talk about the challenges that we face, because whenever you have a disruptive asset, you always have people by definition who are disruptive. Yeah. So tell us about the challenges you face.
Well, Bitcoin is a very disruptive technology. It's one of the most disruptive technologies since the internet, since the cars, since a lot of things like that. So at Jan 3, we are pushing to speed up nation-state adoption. We try to introduce, make meetings with presidents, prime ministers, ministers, even royals around the world to introduce them to the topic of Bitcoin and how it can help them and their country, their populace. Yes, Bitcoin is a bottom-up strategy. It's pure decentralization. Our strategy is a little bit top-down. And we feel that helps to give credibility to Bitcoin. That if we have a bunch of Bitcoiners like ourselves over here, taking a picture with the president or prime minister, that helps to wake up a few people and think, oh, I want to learn about Bitcoin. And challenges, we get a lot of challenges. Firstly, getting an introduction is not as easy as just making a phone call. You know, people are not going to just accept a phone call to talk about Bitcoin.
You can't just say, hey, I'm the Prince of Serbia, come and meet with me.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm there at Jan 3. I guess
it helps to open doors.
It helps to open doors, yeah. But
then you say you want to talk about Bitcoin and they say, I'm not available that evening, or what happens?
Well, here's the thing. We've come across a situation where we've spoken to some nation states, and a few weeks later, the IMF had then spoken to them. I don't know if that's a coincidence or if there really is correlation there, and you know, correlation does not equal causation, but it feels a little bit like there's pressure from the IMF for countries not to understand Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. I think one big example was El Salvador. Exactly 1 year ago, I remember I was at this conference 1 year ago, and we saw the announcement of the IMF pushing back on El Salvador's adoption. And this comes after they were one of the biggest first movers. Public first movers. In 2021, they announced that they will adopt Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, and also that they would adopt it as to release Bitcoin bonds and improve their energy infrastructure. Samson, the CEO of Jan 3, was there on stage with President Bukele, and that was fantastic news. Fast forward to almost 4 years later, and the IMF comes knocking on the door and says, hey, you got to scale back on your Bitcoin adoption. So it's difficult to get away from the grips on the compromisation of the fiat system. And so we're up against that. But it is what it is, and it's fun work, because we have seen some good success stories as well.
We'll come to those, definitely. Yeah. Bilal, similar situation as well. Prince Philip has mentioned the IMF there. Of course, Pakistan also has an IMF loan. What's been your experience, and what's been some of the challenges that you have faced?
Yeah, I think history tells us that whenever you try to kind of bring change, you find a lot of resentment and different forces. And I think with regards to Bitcoin, it's a very interesting case, because you are trying to redefine a lot of things in the financial markets, and you are, not just Bitcoin, and there are other sort of emerging technologies like tokenization. So I think people in policy making right now don't truly appreciate or understand the benefit of this. So I think that is we must do more on educating and telling people that yes, they want to talk about the price of the action, but I think that the price of the inaction is way more greater. Today at whatever price Bitcoin is, and the narrative is there. But if I talk about Pakistan, had we set this up a couple of years ago, we would have been in a different sort of economic strength today. This is the reality that Bitcoin compared, again, talking about the Pakistani perspective or other emerging markets, our currency has taken a hit. why should our people be penalized at the expense of a monetary policy that is being created somewhere else? So why should we not adapt and adopt an asset which is not influenced by any politics, inflation, or printing? Our currency has been, and again, other emerging economies, the currency, if you look at a 10-year chart, it's depreciating. And, we are trying the same things and expecting different results. And then we look at the Bitcoin chart. So why is it not that, whilst we are doing all of these experiments and yet kind of not succeeding, we should start to allocate small resources towards this asset, whether it's through the budget or it's through providing energy?
Exactly, and mining is one of the major ways that you can start to build up a reserve. Bilal was sharing with me off stage as well that had you invested in crypto and Bitcoin earlier, then maybe you wouldn't have even needed that IMF loan in the first place. That's how significant it can be to a nation state. Abdullah, different context, but when you're looking at the work that you're doing and how that dovetails for facilitating the expansion of crypto and Bitcoin within UAE, what are some of the challenges that you've personally faced?
I wouldn't say there are challenges. It's about the understanding of what we could do with this asset, which is interesting today. Bitcoin today, in my opinion, and anybody who's here, that's all, from way back then when it was created, Bitcoin has failed to get to where it is. The whole intention of doing Bitcoin was to use as a peer-to-peer transaction monetary system, which is not what we look at it today. Some people strategy came out with the Treasury idea and through credit facilities. Other companies are saying, oh, this is digital gold, and all of these aspects. In my opinion, some of the challenges that we are facing today is that how to get adoption more wider into what we want to do. Like I told you, do central banks down the line use it as a commodity, for example, to back their treasuries? Should we peg it with stablecoins, or should we actually start looking at it to what it was intended to be, as a peer-to-peer transaction system?
What's your vision, personally?
My vision is unlocking the liquidity of Bitcoin. Basically, one of the projects we look at are working on something, I would say coming out in Q1. My vision is Bitcoin becomes more programmable.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Filip, you were mentioning before about you had some positive wins. I know some of them you cannot reveal here just yet, but some of them you can. Talk about some of the successes you've had and what has worked as you've adopted your approach and you've adapted over time.
Well, I can't really announce it, but Bitcoin bonds, very bullish on Bitcoin bonds. And for those of you not aware, a Bitcoin bond, to simply describe it, is a fixed income security backed by Bitcoin. So, for example, you raise $1 billion, half of it goes into buying the actual thing, Bitcoin, and the other half will go into the energy mining infrastructure to mine more Bitcoin. You have a duration of, let's say, 10 years, because that will incorporate 2 Bitcoin cycles. And every year you'll have a coupon depending on the interest rate, let's say a few percent, 5-6%. And at the end of the 10 years, you are paid back the principal plus however much Bitcoin has increased over the course of 10 years. Also, if you want to be too Bitcoin heavy and you want to please your electorate or your overlords, you can then say, okay, well, maybe all of it, the 1 billion principal, goes into all of energy infrastructure to build up the energy infrastructure and to mine Bitcoin. And with 20% of what you mine you keep, and you add that to your national reserves. Over time, this Bitcoin will accrue, and it's a very friendly, budget-neutral way of adding Bitcoin to your balance sheet.
I think that's a key thing, isn't it? So what you're doing is you're saying to a nation-state leader, look, it may not be politically acceptable for you to use taxpayer dollars to purchase Bitcoin, but if we can provide you a way to do it in a tax-neutral way,
exactly,
then you're helping them to solve that problem, aren't you?
Exactly. It's Because the other way which we've seen that people like, for example, the US, the way they are getting Bitcoin on their national reserves is through seized coins. Yeah. We don't want to set that precedent around the world. We don't want to incentivize governments to accrue seized or stolen coins. So we want to do it in the best form possible, and that's through mining. And Bitcoin is an Bitcoin is a monetary renaissance, but it's also helping to create an energy renaissance as well.
I was going to repeat what you said, the best way possible, and that's through mining. I love it, as somebody who finances mining. Do you want to tell us a little bit more, Bilal, about some of the successes you've had recently? Because obviously Bitcoin mining is a big part of it, but where are some of the wins you've had recently in Pakistan?
So I think the win is in the past 6-7 months, I think turning confusion into clarity, because clarity attracts capital. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a great signal. Pakistan is in a very interesting sort of a situation, because we've had great adoption, but that has not been through any framework, regulation, or even a classroom. And the average age of the country is 23. We are 250 million people. So if the youth of the country was to be an independent country, would have been the 9th biggest crypto-friendly country in the world. So this at least shows us that the youth of Pakistan is world-class. Now, a win for us is setting up this independent virtual assets regulatory authority, because we are not trying to promote crypto. We are just trying to regulate it. The adoption is there already.
It's happening already.
In remittances, yeah. The youth of Pakistan is living on chain, living in stablecoins, because we also happen to be one of the biggest freelancer markets in the world, and they get paid in stablecoins. So I think WIN is putting the right signal out to the world that we have the clarity to create Pakistan as a great case study on how emerging markets should adapt, digital assets, using our excess energy to turn into digital gold, setting up a wallet. Again, we are following the US example, where at the moment we are budget neutral. We are using our confiscated assets, and at least, starting that journey. Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every single hour. So if we want to go into that Renaissance era, so we need to start off with this non-inflationary asset where, Pakistanis and the Pakistani government should be accumulating it and, should be using it as a reserve for a future. We want to plan for 2050. We don't want to look back we want to regulate our country for the future, not for the present or the past.
I think Michael Saylor's been involved in Pakistan as well. He's still involved. What role is he playing in this?
I think, again, we are very sort of blessed that all these OGs and all of these guys are supporting Pakistan, because they truly believe, because of the adoption that we have and the political will, that they want us to succeed. So Michael has been very sort of supportive, and he's been advising and again, doing the most important thing, which is educating the policymakers and the leadership on the price of the inaction.
Abdulla, very interesting to see some of these areas of the world where Bitcoin adoption is accelerating: El Salvador, Pakistan, UAE. What is it from your perspective about UAE which has made it a friendly environment for Bitcoin adoption? And what can the UAE do to, as you say, further that opportunity?
Could you repeat? I couldn't hear that.
Yeah, so the UAE at the moment has the #1 crypto adoption in the world. What is it about what the UAE has done that's been successful, that has facilitated that? And where do you see the future going?
Look, I would say when it comes to the Bitcoin adoption, as you said, the UAE set a standard since 2017 when it comes to regulatory frameworks and all of these things. In other countries, as you would say, like there would be mass adoption but no clarity. We had clarity before mass adoption. That was an advantage.
So regulatory clarity is absolutely key.
Exactly. So by doing that, you actually know what you have to do and what you don't have to do. Then came Bitcoin. Then came Bitcoin mining down the line, where they were using the excess energy to do Bitcoin mining and all of these things. That was also happening at a couple of years ago at a very early adopted stage. So I would say like the pathway to innovation here, there is no ground zero for it. If there is an innovation, they would look into it and actually adopt it and having a pathway towards that innovative idea. Nobody's going to stop innovation here. Nobody's going to tell you this is illegal or not to that aspect. And they try to adapt to the ecosystem. The central bank came up with a couple of licenses that it speaks about digital assets, where in most parts of the world it was a gray zone. The federal regulator saw how free zones are doing within licenses and came up with their own framework. And all of these aspects, they go into very tiny details as well, like how would retail look into leverage trading and all of these things. They differentiate from what we call Web 2 to Web 3. They understand how it's happened. So I would think the biggest advantage into adoption is basically a clear regulatory guidance that allows the users and institutions to basically have a free flow in the space.
I think that's one thing UAE has done exceptionally well, is bringing the regulators, the policymakers, the central banks even, to the table. And a precondition to regulation is education as well. When did that education process start? How long ago was it?
Education process here started between the community.
It's ongoing, I know.
I would say the word of mouth, not only in the UAE, but in the Middle East is a very good thing.
It's very good.
So everybody would speak about Bitcoin, tell their friends, their family, or digital assets, or if you put 1,000 AED into this thing, you would make like 2,000, 3,000 tomorrow. Most of them lose money, by the way.
I'm talking about the regulators and the policymakers. They've been included in this education process, and that's something we haven't seen to the same extent so early in Western nations.
Regulators and policymakers have been working hand on hand with institutions in this space. Basically, they would listen to the institutions and other companies that are in this space. And they try to look at what they're building, how are they doing it, how can they improve better. Let me give it an idea. The Security Commodity Authority, when they released their framework back then, they spoke to a lot of the centralized exchanges before even releasing the regulations and asking them like, what do you guys think about this bit of part and what do you think about that part? And they are very open to these discussions. And basically, when you have a clear framework and everybody's saying UAE has one of the best regulatory frameworks, it's because of the power of partnerships. His Excellency Mohammed Al-Kuwaiti said it earlier, like without partnerships, there is nothing to achieve on a big scale. So we do believe in partnerships. We do believe working hand in hand with the private sector, with the public sector and the government sector. And that way you could grow.
Yeah, wonderful. Let's get a quick 30-second wrap-up from each of you from your perspective. 5 years' time, where do you see nation-state adoption? Starting with you, Bilal.
I think a lot of emerging markets especially are keen and are really looking forward, but they are still trying to are unable to touch and feel what is the right way to do it. And I think in 5 years' time, especially the IMFs and the World Banks of the world will, by that time, would have already adopted and came up with frameworks that enable other countries as well. Just like we have frameworks for the international banking industry, aviation industry, we should have it for the digital assets. So 5 years' time, I'm super bullish that there'll be a lot of Bitcoin adoption by nation states.
Yeah.
I would say personally, again, in my opinion, in 5 years' time, Bitcoin is it's gonna be the same way back in the days how the US started acquiring gold in the market and building their treasury from that and their GDP. And I think each nation state is gonna start to do that.
I see smaller, more nimble countries being able to adopt Bitcoin. I also see more monarchies adopting Bitcoin. I see more success stories like the Kingdom of Bhutan, like the UAE, another monarchy like Oman, which in 2023 they invested 1 billion into Bitcoin mining infrastructure. I see the West. I don't see the Western world catching up with that so much because of the some crazy ESG narrative, but I think that will change with more education. Yeah, and there will be some education, but they'll be lagging. I see the emerging, the global South taking the lead on this, which is great because they're the ones who've been hard done by the fiat madness over the last 100 years. So,
absolutely. Bitcoin is a global ground-up asset, but it's also a top-down asset, and it's not an either-or. Both are required. We're extremely fortunate that we have three amazing people who are working on nation-state adoption. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Please give them a big round of applause.